Everybody, welcome to LA Rams Central. This is the 91st episode. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Eric.
And we're back for episode 91. Only 9 to go till we hit number 100. We'll have the 92nd episode next week. We're going to do our own mock draft about 2 weeks before the draft. I kind of like to let things kind of die down and let free agency really set into play before I want to do a mock. I'm not one of these guys that does 5,000 mock drafts and then go, see, I was right. I do one. But I do want to say...
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Anthony, because last year, Mel Kiper had the same guy all throughout his mock drafts going number one. Day of, changed it. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So that was just in case so he could say, look, I'll tell you one thing right now. From day one, I've and you know this, Eric, who was the first person to say Josh Allen to the Browns?
I'm going to go, no, it wasn't that guy. No, it wasn't him. I think it was you.
Yeah, exactly. Not just because it made sense, but because he fits the system. I'll get into that. I still stand by that. I'll just, spoiler alert, I'll give you my number one pick in the draft. I think it's going to be Josh Allen. I want to say that now because it's all of a sudden now the most popular thing to say. At the time I was saying it, everyone said I was crazy. So,
well, I mean, you still are crazy, but...
Well, it's not about that, right? All right, so as many of you know, the Rams went ahead and traded for Brandin Cooks a while back now, about 2-3 weeks ago. And I wanted to touch on that. Being a Rams Central show, my feeling on the matter was I like the idea of OBJ coming in on two fronts. One, he's an incredible wide receiver who can win the 50-50 ball probably better than any wide receiver out there, which would infinitely help our deep game. I liked OBJ in the sense that if he was a part of a team that had just as much talent as he brings to the table, I think that's the biggest problem in New York. He knows it's OBJ and then everybody else. Well, if you go to the Rams, it's Todd Gurley, it's Aaron Donald, it's Marcus Peters, it's then maybe OBJ. So it might knock him down a peg or two, but ultimately the diva that he is the biggest concern that I had. And the Rams did make a strong push for him, but apparently, Eric, they decided to go a different direction, and they went ahead and picked up Brandin Cooks, traded their 23rd pick for Brandin Cooks. I'll tell you why this concerns me a little bit. The only concern that I have is this is the best draft in the NFL since 1983. And I have a feeling, only having a second-round pick, if we even have that, to play with in the first 4 rounds or 3 rounds bothers me a little bit, but you're not going to find a more proven, better talent at 23 than what the Rams got for Brandin Cooks. Your take on the trade, first of all.
Well, I thought it was a smart trade. I'm not sure if the Rams saw anybody who they liked down at 23 in the draft. You go best player available, but if that best player is somebody that is already taking a position up on your team, yeah, you could use it as depth, but maybe the Rams want to make a splash. And what splash did they make? I don't think there was any chance that anybody was going to get OBJ. Now, I'm not going to say it's 100% that doesn't go anywhere because it's still likely that he does. It's just a matter of if the Giants get what they want for him.
Yeah.
However, the Giants were asking for a king's ransom, and 1 year left on his deal, $8.5 million, so it's not like it's going to break the bank or anything. I just don't think that anybody was going to trade for him, knowing that it's possible that he could hit the open market, but the Giants wouldn't be a smart Giants business decision if they let him hit the open market when they could just franchise him, which I think that's where they're headed.
Yeah.
So what the Rams did, let's call New England and say, what do you want for Brandin Cooks? And New England's like, well, here, this is what we want. And the Rams are like, done. So, they don't have a first-round pick. They don't have a couple of picks in the first day or two. And so when you can get a proven commodity for a draft pick where it may take a draft pick 3 years, especially a wide receiver, and you already have a guy going into his 5th season, who already has 280 catches, 27 total touchdowns, you're getting a good player, and he's played with two Hall of Fame or future Hall of Fame quarterbacks in Drew Brees and Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You know Cooks can help that offense go to another level. I still think the Rams are a run-first team with Gurley. Obviously, they don't want to wear Gurley out, so this is where Jared Goff comes in. If Jared Goff overthrows Brandon Cooks, either Cooks got jammed at the line or he flat out dropped it, because there's no way he's going to be able to overthrow him.
No.
If he's got a great deep ball, like you keep saying, there's no way he overthrows him. So look for a lot of big plays between the two. The Rams also want to sign him before week 1, which is smart. Get his mind right, his mindset right. Get him wanting to play, because you don't want him going into the season saying, "Oh crap, if I blow out my knee, they're not going to save me, or they're not going to sign me."
Yeah.
So they already have a blueprint with the Jarvis Landry deal. He just signed a $75 million deal, so they have a blueprint there. And yes, Landry has 120 more catches in his career than Cooks, and he has 95 more yards than Cooks total in 4 years. And Cooks has played 6 less games, but 5 more touchdowns than Landry. Landry's not a touchdown guy.
No.
So they're very comparable, but Cooks is going to give you a lot of speed on the outside, where Jarvis Landry's going to be playing slot receiver. Well, they have their slot receiver in Cooper Kupp. So not only do you have 2 speed guys, now you have to break up the safeties on the outside to say, okay, help over the top. When you got that speed burner, man, it's hard to cover that much ground when Goff lets it fly. So to me, it's a great trade. It makes the Rams offense more explosive, and you will not get Goff, Gurley, Brandon Cooks, or Tyler Higbee in fantasy next year.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Listen, here's the thing that I'm looking at. I'm looking at this. Okay, let's look at it from a coach's standpoint. There's no 8th guy in the box anymore, right? And with Sammy Watkins, there wasn't either. But I do think that Brandon Cooks is significantly faster than Sammy Watkins was. I think it's an upgrade from what we had a year ago. So they're probably looking at that going, okay, well, now we definitely can't put 8 in the box, which means you've got Gurley against 7, which is better for an aging O-line at 2 key positions, center and left tackle. But you said that he had worked with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, which I think is huge, because now he can talk to Jared Goff and be like, look, this is what Tom Brady did. This is what Drew Brees does. This is what Tom Brady does. This is what Drew Brees did. And, you know, that knowledge in itself is more valuable than anything Sammy Watkins brought to the table to begin with. So
that's true, but he's got to be very careful how he says it, because he doesn't want to put Goff down at a lower level. And I mean, Goff is still growing, obviously, but he doesn't want to break Goff's confidence, saying, "Hey, you know what? Brees did this or Brady did that."
Well,
you know,
the good thing.
He could twist around and be like, "Hey, you know what? This is awesome. This is great, because Brees never did this with me."
Right.
And you're doing this, and it's going to take us to a new level.
Well,
I mean, now they can stretch the field with Sammy Watkins, who's just mainly a red zone threat.
Yeah.
Then the offense never focused around him. You get the right defense, you can throw to Cooks all day.
Well,
run Gurley, and you still open up the field a lot more.
Well, one thing that I want to say on that is Jared Goff is not Josh Rosen, you know, atypical millennial who gets offended at the drop of a hat. I think Jared Goff would be able to understand what he was saying and run with it. And you're right. There's going to be times he's like, wow, I hope that happens. I hope he's like, dude, you do this way better than Tom Brady did. You know, Drew Brees never did this with me. This is great. I mean, that's obviously going to be wonderful. But, you know, it's a matter of, you know, what those things are and how they do those things. But I think Jared Goff is going to probably be picking his brain and wanting to learn from him as much as possible. Here's the thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The good news is, for those of you out there that don't know, let me tell you, Les Snead informed everyone that Aaron Donald and Cooks will be signed before the first preseason game this year. So there is obviously a deal in the works for both of these guys. What I find frustratingly hilarious is I'm listening to these experts talk. And for those of you that don't know, before the Rams got Brandon Cooks, before the Rams signed Ndamukong Suh, they were talking about the Rams being $100 million under the cap for 2019. Let me say that number again because it's significant. $100 million under the cap. And that was with the Aaron Donald money budgeted. So they were probably plus 100,000. Then the Rams signed Sue and Cooks, and they're like, could the finances be what do the Rams in? Can they keep all these guys signed? How are they going to sign Gurley? How are they going to sign Goff? And it's as if they don't even understand what the very facts are that they said just 3 weeks earlier or a month earlier. Not only do the Rams have enough to re-sign Gurley and, re-sign Marcus Peters and sign Braden Cooks and Aaron Donald, but I don't know if people are aware of this. Apparently I'm the only one that knows this, but you can sign a guy before his contract is up. So the Rams could theoretically go to Jared Goff and structure a deal that's back-end heavy and light-end light, front-end light, and have this team together for the next 7 to 8 years. But see, because their name isn't Packers, 49ers, Cowboys, Patriots, Steelers, or Broncos, the media is not going to report this. They're going to try and find a reason why this isn't going to work. Because the last thing they want is the Rams in the Super Bowl, which makes no sense to anybody because the Rams are in LA, and I would think you'd want bigger markets to perform. Baseball's figured this method out unbelievably well, but apparently the NFL's like, no, if it's not the Seahawks or one of the 6 teams that we like, to heck with the rest of the league, which is going to get me to my rant later. But Eric, why is it, you're a media guy, okay? I switched majors when I found out I couldn't get a degree in play-by-play or color commentating. So why is the media missing the boat so badly on the position the Rams are not only in this year, but in the future?
I just don't think they want another dog in the race. That's just what it all boils down to. And that's a shame, because if you want LA to work as an NFL franchise, now they have 2. Who knows how long the Chargers are going to stay? But if you want all this, because it worked before, but then it went so long without it, I'm not sure if they missed it. And I know there's a following football teams, the Rams and the Raiders out there, and now apparently the Chargers. But I don't think these guys want to do their homework and be like, oh, well, the Rams are legit.
Yeah.
No, they just want to write the Rams off. They're not giving them the time of day. They're not giving them the amount of pub that they should be getting. I mean, the best defensive player in the league is Aaron Donald. Where does he play?
Right.
LA. Okay? One of the most explosive running backs in the league. Where does he play? LA. One of the 2 top and up and coming, one of the 3 up and coming quarterbacks plays in LA. Yeah. You're wondering who the other 2 are? Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, exactly.
So now that they're getting marquee free agents and making these trades for Marcus Peters, okay, and signing a Ndamukong Suh, it's putting the Rams more on the map, and the city is lighting up more, saying, "Hey, talk about us," because if you don't, and we surprise you, don't say that you said that we saw this coming, because we'll call you out on it.
Right.
You and I will.
Oh, for sure. Well, the thing that kills me, the thing that kills me in all of this, and it really does blow my mind, is, these millennials that have now infected and infested our workforce, they're lazy. They don't do their homework. They don't think about anything beyond 10 years ago. The Cleveland Browns are one of the most historic franchises in the National Football League's history. The Chicago Bears are one of the juggernauts in National Football history. The Rams are one of the juggernauts in National Football League history. They were the first team to win 7 consecutive division titles. They were the first team to have a rookie quarterback win a postseason game. They were the first team and the only team to win a championship in 3 different cities. And they were the only team to leave a city and then come back home to it. Unless you want to count the Browns, that's fair, although they didn't actually ever truly leave. So there's so much history there. There's so much history with the Rams-Viking rivalry that they don't talk about because they're lazy and they can't think beyond 2007. There's so much history between the Rams and Cowboys, the Rams and Bears. It just blows my mind. And if anybody's out there like, what are you talking about? All they do is talk about the Rams. You guys are so stupid. Okay, look at the preseason schedule and tell me how many primetime games the Rams have. With that roster, with all of those new additions, how many primetime preseason games do the Rams have? If you guessed less than one, you are correct. Meanwhile, we get the Packers, we get the Saints, we get the Steelers, we get the Patriots, we get the Seahawks, we get the same old tired retread. Every single year, it's the same teams. So you're 100% right on that. Now, Eric, before I get to my rant, well, let me go into my rant because I think this ties into it. So my rant will be brief, and I want you to chime in with it when you want. The other issue that I'm running into is I heard this a lot with the NBA and people going, oh, the fans don't want the Cavs, and the fans want only the Cavs and the Golden State Warriors. They certainly want at least one of the two. Dude, that is so dumb. Dude, the fans don't want repetitive garbage year in and year out. Yes, it's different in baseball because even still in baseball, small markets get a big following in the World Series. Look at last year. You had the Astros, not a big market, against the Dodgers, a super big market. A historical franchise.
The number 2 and number 4 markets. So, I mean, yeah, you got 2 top 5 markets.
Okay, but nobody considers the Houston Astros. Look, the fan bases in general around baseball, unless you're in Houston, you're not going, yeah, Houston's a juggernaut in our history. Like, I'm in Arizona. I'm not going to watch the Astros unless I like the team or unless I think the team is worth watching. And if the Twins are in a World Series, if the Astros are in a World Series, I'm going to watch it, not because I think it's a big market, but because it's something different. And when you put that...
I mean, come on, look at 2016. Is Cleveland a big market? No. And people were tuned in. Yes, okay, it was against the Cubs, I get it. But Cleveland also has its own history losing. So people wanted to see Cleveland in there.
Yeah. For sure.
Okay, Cleveland's not a big market, and I mean, look at okay, let's just say this year has any indication. The Pirates are one of the best teams in baseball. Is Pittsburgh a big following? No, I've seen pictures of the stadium right now when they play a home game, and it's what 5,000 people.
But you know something? I'll tell you something though, Eric. If the Pirates are in the postseason, I'm watching every single game they're in.
Well, yeah, they bring an aura to it. I mean, everybody remembers the Pirates of the early 90s against the Braves. And so, I mean, yeah, the Pirates bring exciting baseball.
My point is that the reason I would watch the Pirates isn't necessarily because of their history, but because it's something different. Don't get me wrong. My baseball teams have always been Yankees, Dodgers, Cardinals, Twins. Those are the 4 teams I watch. I've adopted the Nationals because of my wife. And I'd probably put the Nationals second over the Dodgers.
Well,
but,
hey, let me ask you this. When I call you, what's on your ringtone?
For you?
Yeah.
Yeah, go Cubs, go.
All right, so you follow the Cubs.
Well, true. I mean, everyone follows the Cubs. They were the lovable losers for so long, and then they won, and they're a good baseball team. But that's my point, is the media only wants to pay attention to the teams they want to pay attention to. And because they live in their bubble, all they think is everyone thinks the way we do. And the reality is, you'd think ESPN's ratings would be a dead indicator that nobody thinks the way you do. And nobody agrees with you. Whether you're Jaleel Hill, the nitwit that continues to try to bring politics into sports, or, you're one of these idiots. It's like, I love the Cowboys and I don't care about anybody else. And then all they do is talk about Dallas. And there's plenty of them on ESPN. And one of them left. I won't mention any names, but we all know who I'm talking about. And mainly I won't mention his name because I can't remember his name. Skip Bayless. So, it's stupid. The bottom line is, and guys, I want you to comment down here. I know we said we do a Q&A segment, but I'm going to start that the next show. So understand that. We'll bring this stuff up first. But so ask questions for this one, and we'll air them and talk about them on the next show. But correct me if I'm wrong. We get just as excited as a fan base to see something really different in the championship as we do seeing a great rivalry. Okay? I'm not going to be disappointed if it's, the Houston Rockets versus the Toronto Raptors. I'll watch it. I'll obviously watch it if it's the Celtics, but, it won't be. But the bottom line is people watch something different and they watch something new. And when you go on ratings, yeah, you need to go on ratings, but the problem with the rating system is twofold. One, I've never been surveyed on the games I watch. I don't have a Nielsen's ratings box, and nobody takes into consideration the iPhone, the laptop, online streaming, going to a bar and watching the game rather than watching it on your own television. People don't watch it the same way today as they used to. And to sit there and assume, based on the ratings, no one's watching is foolish. Now, you want to use the ratings to see if there's a slip in your normal production, but you've got to have a secondary stat to back that up to make sure it's a true slip. This is where the NFL and why the NFL is freaking out about the anthem protest, which is going to bring us to your topic, okay? Because not only did the ratings slip here, but online streaming slipped, telephone apps dropped. So they only talked about the ratings, but believe me, guys, they saw the numbers across the board falling down in the NFL. Speaking of protests, go ahead. Oh, unless you have a comment on this, of course.
No, I mean, you hit it. But typically, I thought ratings was if you had your TV on the same channel for 15 minutes, it took a rating that way.
Nope.
So, I mean, I thought Nielsen ratings were more like, here's a set-top box, let's see what you watched for how long.
Yeah, that's what it is. And that's the only thing they rank the ratings off of.
Okay. Following your rant, I just want to say that the Seahawks scheduled a visit with Colin Kaepernick, but apparently when they were on the phone with him, and I'm not sure how far it got to where they had their first talk and then maybe a second talk, but GM John Schneider basically came out and asked Kaepernick if he was going to stop kneeling during the national anthem. Well, Kaepernick's response was, I don't know. And then the Seahawks decided to postpone their visit with Kaepernick, and they basically went on to say, the door's not closed. And then about a few hours later, they go out and sign backup quarterback Stephen Morris, who was, I want to say, in Washington or Indy, and never taken an NFL snap before. So it just goes to show you that, people are willing to talk to Cap, but if he's not willing to change, kind of like, I don't want to put this in the same segment as Pete Rose, but Pete Rose was asked by Commissioner Rob Manfred in Major League, hey, you know what, I know you're applying for reinstatement. Here's a set of things we would like you to work on to change, to even be eligible to even think about getting you into the Hall of Fame. And when he met with Manfred, he's like, no, I still gamble, and I really haven't changed much. So they're like, okay, well, we're not even going to think about this anymore. Yeah. So I kind of look at it the same way that says, you know what, Kaepernick, and I know he's headstrong, and he's trying to fight for what he believes in. And I don't want to say, just put your head down and stick your tail between his legs, because that's admitting that he lost. And this is a fight that he wants to continue. Well, he's going to continue it in the unemployment line of the NFL.
So I'm going to say a few things on this first, okay? Number one, Colin Kaepernick did lose the argument. The overall American public spoke, certainly the American public that watches football games, and the owners got the message. So sorry, you lost. That's number one. Number two, I keep hearing this, oh, that's an inappropriate, you can't ask your employee that question. Essentially, yes, I'll tell you why they can. You have the right to say what you want to say. An employee has the right not to hire you based on what you said. I'm sorry, that's the law. Love it or hate it. Secondly, if an employer can ask you, will you please or do you talk politics with the customer? And if an employee says yes, the employer can say, please stop. That's not permitted. We can't hire you if you say yes to that question. So will you stop? And somebody goes, no, I'm going to talk politics because that's what I am. Then the employer has the right not to hire you. And that is literally the question that the Seahawks asked Colin Kaepernick. Are you willing to stop politicizing our sport in front of our customers? Because they don't like it. And when you say no, the employer has the right to fire you. It's not an inappropriate question to ask at all. He didn't ask him what his sexual orientation was. He didn't ask him if he likes to date white women or black women. He didn't ask him anything inappropriate except, simply put, are you going to continue to talk politics to our fans on the field? Because that's all this is. I'm sorry, if you believe in Colin Kaepernick's cause, that's great. But the bottom line is, it's been politicized. Whether that was his intention or not is irrelevant. The matter has gotten politicized. And the best place for political action is on the street where you can make the biggest impact. It is not in the entertainment industry. Now, it doesn't mean you can't do it. Obviously, you can do it. But you can also then be unemployed because of it. You can also lose your ratings. Just ask Hollywood and how their Emmy Awards went or their Oscars went. One of the lowest ratings in the history of the Oscars. So, while you have the right to protest, the fans have the right to turn it off. And owners have to worry about paying every single person on that roster and every single person in that building. And when they've got that many mouths to feed, the last thing they can do is submarine the entire project for one person's political ideology. It doesn't work that way. So let's get off this high horse that this isn't an appropriate question to ask. And by the way, guys, it's not collusion when every owner decides, if this is bad for business, I'm not going to do this, therefore I'm not going to hire these people. Okay? That's like saying businesses collude against the American public because they don't give their product away for free. It's the same thing. I should be able to buy your product for half the price and get a second one for free. Otherwise, all the businesses are colluding against me from getting what everyone else has. Like, obviously, no one makes that argument. If somebody decides, I'm not going to hire this person because they're hurting my bottom line with their politics, and they're politicizing it, and they're talking politics with the customer, and then, hey, I'm interviewing this guy. I noticed he worked for you. Why did you fire him? They can't say anything negative, but they can say, well, we had a conversation, and they couldn't stop talking politics, and that's not our policy here at our work, so we had to let him go. Other than that, he was a great employee. Okay, cool, thanks. Sorry, you're not hired. We don't do politics here either. That's not collusion. Every company does that. So if you want a better analogy, it's like getting fired from a job for doing something that was against their policy, and then other companies that have similar policies don't hire you because of that policy, and then you claim collusion. To sit there and say that Colin Kaepernick believes in this cause is a bitter pill for me to swallow too. Because obviously we talked about the short memory of the people. So let me tell you about short memory, Eric. In 2016, Colin Kaepernick, after the season, was asked if he would continue to kneel for the anthem, and he said, no, I just want to play football. No one hired him. Now he's being asked if he'll kneel, and all of a sudden, no, I'm going to kneel because it's what I believe in. Well, it wasn't what you believed in last year when it was expedient for your career, and now that you're in a collusion case and it's expedient for your career, you're going to kneel. the inconsistency blows my mind. Secondly, let's look at what Kaepernick's doing. You're suing every owner in football for not hiring you, and then you're going on interviews to be hired. I don't know about you guys. Why don't you do this? Apply for a company, then sue them, and then apply at the company again. Let me know how that works out for you. I'm curious if you think you're going to get hired by that company then. I mean, there's a lot of common sense here that's missed. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't want to talk about Colin Kaepernick again, because if we want to talk about unfair treatment of a guy who definitely is capable of doing the job, then I don't want to hear another word until Tim Tebow has a job in the NFL. Because there are not 96 quarterbacks, including Colin Kaepernick, who are better than Tim Tebow. I'm sorry, there just isn't. So there might be 32, there might be 64, but there darn sure aren't 96. And that guy isn't playing football, and he ain't complaining about it. He moved on with his life. So, and believe me, there's a lot of people that think the league colluded against him because he's so overtly religious, and in particular, he's LDS. So, I don't want to hear it. So, that's my 2 cents on Colin Kaepernick. And it's not necessarily being political, it's just stating what's going on in the news right now. Now, there are players like Reed who knelt with Colin Kaepernick, and he should have a job. And it's ridiculous that he doesn't. And I'm hoping that somebody lands him because he deserves it. But Kaepernick is not in the same category as Reed. I'm sorry. He just isn't. Should he have a job? Is he better than 60? Are there 96 quarterbacks better than him? Probably not. But there also aren't 96 quarterbacks who are hurting the bottom line of the owner and then in turn are also suing all of the owners. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, plus they play two different positions. Corner or safety isn't the featured position and whatnot of a football team. So yeah, it's a double standard, but it comes with the territory.
Yeah. No. What was the other thing you want to talk about?
Dez Bryant got released by the Cowboys.
Yeah, that was shocking. Not really.
Okay, so we talk about this pretty much all off season, and a lot of it had to do with Dez's play on the field and a little bit of his attitude off the field. Well, when you have a quarterback that isn't accurate and the focal point is the run game, yes, Dez Bryant's numbers are going to slip. Jason Witten's numbers slip. Terrence Williams barely saw a catch or even a targeted game. I mean, we had some games where he went off, but I'm sorry. To me, Dez Bryant isn't slipping. Dez Bryant needs an offense that is going to throw him the ball more than 5 times a game. Now, he left Valley Ranch at the headquarters. He left there yesterday. He said, "I'll see you boys twice a year." Which then, of course, everyone speculated, let's get in touch with the Giants, the Redskins, and the Eagles and see if they're going to sign him. Well, the Redskins basically came out and said, we're satisfied with our wide receivers. The second team I'm going to mention, the other 2 teams haven't come out and said anything, but the next team I'm going to mention, I will tell you there is no way that I see Odell Beckham Jr. and Dez Bryant getting along on the sideline when there's a ton of mouths to feed. A ton. You know Beckham's going to want to catch 100. You know Dez is going to want to catch 100. I'm sorry, but when you also have Sterling Shepard who commands and Evan Ingram who is coming into his own and is going to be one of the top probably 5 tight ends in the league next year or the year after, there's a lot of mouths to feed. I don't see the Giants going after him, which leaves Philadelphia, which would be T.O. 2.0. It's a possibility because who knows if Alshon Jeffrey is going to be he's going to be healthy for the start of the season, and they can always use another player on the outside with Ertz in the middle. So they're an intriguing option. However, as we were doing our show, and I've seen actually 4 teams that Adam Schefter has named as far as teams that could use a wide receiver.
Hold the phone. Hold the phone. Hold the phone. Hold the phone. I didn't hear who you said, but I want to jump in here before I hear the Schefter report. Because although I don't think the Redskins are entirely out of the equation, the team to me that makes the most sense for Dez Bryant is the Arizona Cardinals. And the reason I say the Arizona Cardinals is if they're going to make a play for Baker Mayfield or one of these quarterbacks, and the rumor is out here that they're thinking about it, that they're working on it, I don't know what that deal's going to look like. We did our first 10 mock draft and my nose leaked, and we had to cancel it and stop it. But so you kind of know where I'm going with this, and I don't want to spoil anything. But to me, the Cardinals make the most sense because Larry Fitzgerald is on his way out the door. And they have really, other than Brown, they really have no one out there to help him. And he would be, and the Cardinals have proven that when they have a number one wide receiver, they target the living daylights out of him. So I think that would be a good option for him. That's just my 2 cents, but that's where I think he's going. What did Schefter say?
So Schefter named the Cardinals,
there you go,
the Bills, the Ravens, and the Packers. Now, I think he seriously just maybe drew a name on the hat with the Packers because that's not their forte.
No.
I know they might need a wide receiver, but I don't care if they just got a whole new front office. They signed their one marquee free agent in Jimmy Graham, and I don't see the Packers being a player for them. I think they need a little bit more help on defense than what's to be believed.
Right.
So here's my here's who I think he should sign with, and what the best fit for him is. I don't agree with the Cardinals. I don't think Sam Bradford's going to get him the ball, and he'd blow up on the sideline more than 7 times that he did in Dallas.
Well, that's cute that you think Bradford's going to be throwing to him. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, Bradford or Glennon, do you trust either one?
No, I trust the one they're going to draft, but go ahead.
Okay. So if he wants to play with a chip on his shoulder, this team has done it before. They've been successful with who they've done it with. Look out for the Baltimore Ravens.
I mean, they got a good quarterback. That's not a bad fit, but then he ain't good.
I mean, the Dallas Cowboys said they wanted to go in a different direction. I'm sorry, but Allen Hurns is going backwards, not forwards. So I don't view Allen Hurns as a breakout wide receiver. I know he did Jacksonville 2 years ago, but that was 1 year.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him be consistent. So I'm not sold on. I know there was other underlying things going on with Brian. I know they were getting fed up with his sideline antics. When he was putting up numbers, they kind of dealt with it.
Yeah.
And they say it's a result-oriented business. I understand that. I agree with them 100% on that. But you don't just release your star player who still has good years left in.
See, this is why I don't get you. I don't get you or the media. In the last 3 years, all Dez Bryant has done is decline.
Well, yes. Look who their quarterback was.
Well, okay, for 1 year.
Look who they drafted. Okay. When you go, listen, if Tony Romo was healthy the last 3 years and was still on the Cowboys, Dez will be getting it.
If frogs had wings, they wouldn't bump their ass when they hop. If Vince Ferragamo saw Billy Waddy, the Rams win Super Bowl 14. What ifs are what ifs. Reality is reality.
Well, if the quarter came up tails instead of heads, Terry Bradshaw would have been a bear.
Okay, true. Exactly my point. So I think what we have to look at here.
Your backup quarterback, when your backup quarterback doesn't compare to your starting quarterback, you're going to hurt elsewhere. Okay? So, yes, Dez Bryant's numbers slipped. I will 100% agree with you. I've seen the numbers. I've seen it happen. Tony Romo's backup. Do you remember who that was?
Babe Laufenberg? No, I'm joking. I don't know.
I mean, it wasn't Jason Garrett either.
No, I can't remember who it was. Oh, who was it?
He's,
Who was it?
exactly. You got me too.
Okay,
I don't know who Tony Romo's backup was, but what is the backup told to do?
Get the ball to their playmakers.
Get the ball to the playmakers and don't turn the ball over.
Right. Look.
So what are you going to do? You're going to hand the ball off more times as a backup quarterback than anything.
Mm-hmm. Unless you're Kurt Warner.
Well, unless you're Kurt Warner.
Look, here's.
Not everybody has a Kurt Warner.
No, here's or for that matter, a Nick Foles. Look, here's my issue.
So.
Here's my issue.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
So, when you draft Dak Prescott in the third or fourth round, okay, and he's Tony Romo as a backup, and he comes in, and you've already drafted Ezekiel Elliott and already seen what he's done, you're going to continue to feed Elliott, correct?
Yeah.
You're going to say, okay, wide receivers run your routes, but tight end Jason Witten, you get open over the middle for him, correct?
Right.
Okay. So when Dak doesn't improve like you thought he was going to do in year two, whose numbers are going to continue to suffer? The wide receivers.
Okay. So I want to say a couple things here when you're done. So I'll wait, but go ahead and finish your thought if you haven't yet.
So I am finished.
Okay.
Obviously, there's always three sides to the story. That is the Cowboys and what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I get why they released him, and they used his declining numbers as the reason, but also said some off-field antics, off-field issues that we wanted to move in a different direction. Well, if that direction is Allen Hurns, the Cowboys are going to be down near the bottom of the standings for the next couple of years.
So let me just...
Because miraculously, Dak Prescott isn't going to become Kurt Warner overnight.
No.
And start hitting Allen Hurns and Terrence Williams and Jason Witten with authority. They're going to continue to feed Elliott. You know, the Cowboys might say they miss Bryant, or the fans might say they miss Bryant. But if Bryant goes to the right system and he thrives and catches and has over 1,000 yards and proves to everybody that, you know, it was just a fluke the last couple of years, more power to him.
All right, so here's what I have to say on this, okay? Number one, we follow the Rams, right? Not because you're a Ram fan, but because you do the show, you follow the Bears as well. The Rams have a very similar system. Hand the ball to Todd Gurley, throw it to the tight end over the middle. But the tight end doesn't get open in the Rams system for whatever reason right now. I think those guys need a little bit more work. Who did get open? Robert Woods. Who got the football? Robert Woods. The problem in Dallas is the wide receivers weren't getting off of their coverage. And the last thing you're going to ask a quarterback to do is to throw into double coverage and have faith that the guy back there is going to outmuscle everyone else for the football, especially when you've seen Dez Bryant the last 2 years compete on very rare occasions. That's number one. Number two, let's not pretend like Dak Prescott had a horrible year last year. Dallas went, 8-8, 9-7. He carried that team through most of the season after Ezekiel Elliott, well, at least through 6 games of the season when Ezekiel Elliott went down. And he didn't look all that bad doing it. He had a couple of bad spots, but it was also in his second year, and he's learning the system. And if you look at Dak Prescott's numbers, I think you'd be hard-pressed to convince anybody that those weren't good numbers, considering that he couldn't get a wide receiver open to save his life, and that the only one that could get open was a 97-year-old tight end and a running back. Okay, that limits what you can do offensively. Now, is Hurns going to help that? No. I don't disagree with that, but you know what Hurns isn't? Hurns isn't a $17 million, $18 million contract. The third thing is they went to Dez and said they wanted to keep him. And they asked Dez to be intellectually honest and bet on himself and take a pay cut this year, play out a 1-year contract, earn that money back. And Dez didn't want to do it. So, you know, this isn't on the Cowboys organization. And believe me, I don't like defending Dallas. But this is on Dez Bryant. He had a window or an opportunity to stay in Dallas. And if you really think that Dez Bryant should be paid number one money, then I don't want to hear anything about wide receivers being overpaid for. Because if that's the logic, then I should be able to go out and go out and pay Josh Doxton, whatever his name is. Can't say his name right now. $19 million to be my number one because the guy has speed and potential. Like, I know what Dez Bryant has done, but I also know what Dez Bryant has been doing. And it warranted a pay cut. Now, he could have stayed, taken the pay cut, signed a one-year contract, and proved it, but he chose not to do that, so the Cowboys let him go. Now, is he going to put up 100 catches and over 1,500 yards somewhere else? Maybe. Don't be surprised if he signs in New England. But is that going to be a byproduct of him not truly being washed up, or, as you said, the system fitting? The system left Dez Bryant. Much like in the 90s, the system left Jerry Rice. So what did Jerry Rice do? He modified his game so he could stay in San Francisco. When the Niners got Ricky Watters, that was a different team. When they switched quarterbacks to Steve Young, that was a different team. But guess who was still the number one wide receiver in football? Jerry Rice. So, you need to keep in mind these things as they unfold. It's not that I think Dez Bryant's a bad wide receiver, because I do think he's a good one. But here's what I find funny too. Go ahead.
I was going to say that it would be so New England Patriots like to pick him up.
Right? Seriously. I'm pretty much assuming that's what's going to happen. Here's what I think is funny. I'm going to end with this. I'm going to pose this to you. So I'm listening to Reggie Bush talk on Good Morning Football. And he's talking about how, Jared Goff resurrected his career. And I'm laughing and going, so his first 7 games of his rookie year, that determined the direction his career was going to go. So we're going to consider McVay as resurrecting his career, or possibly the guy just worked really hard in the offseason and improved, and McVay also reaped the benefits of that and catered his system to his abilities. But whatever, I digress. So he resurrected his career after 7 games. Then in the same breath said, are we really going to crown Jimmy Garoppolo as this great quarterback? He's only played 7 games. Eric, I officially give up. I don't understand why these guys get paid so much money to analyze football games when they can literally, in the same sentence, show the hypocrisy that they possess. First of all, Garoppolo's...
Sorry to interrupt, but I would have turned to Reggie Bush and said, hey, would you have said that in 98 after a 3-13 season for Peyton Manning?
Right? Well, of course not. Or turned around and said, how come when Troy Aikman went 0-11 and had more interceptions than touchdowns in 1989 that no one seemed to take issue with his career? See, the problem that everyone seems to forget with Jared Goff his rookie year, he had Brian Quick, Kenny Britt. By the way, Kenny Britt had more drop passes than any wide receiver in professional football last year. He was a wide receiver on the 0-16 Browns. Follow that pattern. He had Brian Quick, Kenny Britt, and Tavon Austin to throw to. That was his wide receivers. So don't tell me Troy Aikman had no one to throw to. He had friggin' Michael Irvin in 89. So that's just a bunch of garbage right there. And he had, I didn't have Jay Novacek yet. They didn't get Jay Novacek until 91. But I digress. He was a Cardinal. But the point still remains to be the same, right? We are...
I can't take what Reggie Bush says seriously until I see him in possession of his own Heisman Trophy.
That's low. Look, I can't take anything these NFL experts say because unlike me and you, they go in with a preconceived notion and bias and they are unmovable from it. I was the one who said, and you've said the same thing, we cannot truly gauge a person's career until after year 3. I'm the only one telling you Dak Prescott had an impressive year last year. maybe outside the Cowboy brass. All things considered. Injury, the team, the suspension, the sideshow that was the Ezekiel Elliott trial. I think he played pretty well for his second year. I'm not a Dak Prescott fan. I'm not a Dallas Cowboy fan. But I also didn't sit there and crown him in the Hall of Fame after his rookie year either. So, and I'm not sitting here saying, I was right about Jared Goff. We'll find out if I was right after this year. If Jared Goff has another strong year and he puts together, and really you could even go one more year if you wanted to, but that would be a 3-year sample size. What is that, 32 plus 7? So 38 games, 39 games if you count the postseason. That's enough to determine whether the guy's a bust or not. But you're right, 16 games just isn't enough. It just isn't enough, and it isn't fair to the player. So that's my 2 cents. But I guess that's why people watch us, righty?
That's right.
So what do you want to do to take us home? Because we're done.
Well, I mean, we got a couple of weeks until the draft, so, I hope you guys look forward to our mock draft. What I'd like to see some of you guys do, a lot of our longtime listeners, even any newbies who want to partake, I want you to put down your top 10 list in the comment section of this show, because we're going to go back to it and see who, kind of go over a little bit of maybe what you think. Because after we post episode 92, okay, we might actually call out and say, hey, Clint Truesdell, hey, I saw you had these top 4 guys going. I'm curious why you picked them. Okay. Yeah. Your other longtime subscriber who also is a big Rams fan. I know everybody's a big Rams fan, but I think you know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, you're talking about LT Combat Sports LA or Clash of the Horns.
Yes,
either one of them.
Thank you. I apologize for getting your screen name, but put on there too. Your top 10, and you guys are gonna get some airtime. Okay, I want to see your guys like top 5 or top 10, and actually I want to see your top 10 because I'm curious at who you guys got the Bears taken to. Because I talk about them quite a bit. Anthony talks about them quite a bit too. So put down your top 10. I'm curious to see how it looks against Anthony's and mine. I know Anthony and me are going to be completely different. I want to see how you guys are. And anybody else who wants to partake, hey, we're going to try to get to as many of you guys as possible who put down their top 10. I'd be like, well, hey, so-and-so has this guy going number 10 to the Raiders, okay? And maybe you can explain it a little bit, or maybe we can say, okay, well, here's what I think they might be thinking, because here's what the Raiders need. And if you have Calvin Ridley going number 10 to the Raiders because they need a wide receiver, hey, guess what? We're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So that's what I would like to see in the comment section of this show. So this way we can go back to it next week and give you guys some airtime.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate a couple of things. April, you've been such a sweet fan for me and Eric. I know you've wished us well when we haven't been on for a long time. You've shown a little concern. It's hard for me not to like the Georgia Bulldogs because I have so many friends from the Georgia area, and when I have a fan like you, that makes it really hard not to root for the Bulldogs, even though I'm an Alabama fan. So I'll say this for you: go Dogs! But there's her.
Well, if it's any consolation, I was rooting for Georgia the national kid.
Yeah, I bet you were, buddy. Well, look, I can't complain. We got one of the best Bulldogs of all time to play for the Rams and Todd Gurley. But there's April, there's LT, there's Combat Sports. Well, he is Combat Sports LA. There's Clash of the Horns. There's Cliff. I got a Viking fan. Forgive me. I will get your name for the 92nd episode at the end of the show. Who, we kind of went back and forth a little bit when I talked about the Rams having the better defense when they met. Talked a little bit of trash, and then the Vikings won. But he even admitted this Ram defense looks pretty damn legit and scary. So it's going to be fun to kind of see that rivalry reshape and take off again. So credit to you. And we got over 1,000, which is great. Maybe we're going to lose some because of our little content in the middle of the show here. But I just feel like the content that we covered today was relevant and important to the issue at the time since Kaepernick's back in the news. But, by and large, I think the fans know we don't usually stay on this stuff for longer than a couple of minutes of one episode, and then we move on. So I just can't say thank you enough to all of you guys. One of the things I'm looking into in the next couple of months, especially when summer hits, I'm going to be talking with Eric about possibly trying to get a FaceTime thing going so he can actually get in on this, and maybe even a podcast. And FYI, guys, when we do there's going to be a total reboot of the show after the 100th episode. I'm not going to say anything more than that because I don't want to really spoil it. And we'll spend the 100th episode probably just talking about that and what the rebrand is going to look like and how we're going to go over that. But one of the things that I am looking into is there's an opportunity to get an FM station here in Arizona. You just pay it and you basically rent the airspace. I'm looking more into that. That might be something that me and Eric do once a week as well. So I got to wait and see all the logistics of that. And that's going to have to wait until school's done and I'm off for the summer, which is like 28 days. And then I have to go back to work. But I'll have some time there to do that. So I'm looking into that, and just know that we're trying to improve the show as much as we can here coming up. We're listening. We're hearing you guys. We love you, and thank you so much for your subscriptions. And keep subscribing, keep liking, and keep talking.
If you guys still have questions, we're still going to do a question and answer. But anything you guys want to talk about, let us know. Put it in the comment section. We'll hit on it.
Yeah, the Q&A is for me is going to really take off episode 93 and forever after that. We're going to have a segment designated just for Q&A. So I'm going to collect a few questions from this show, previous shows, and that 92nd episode, and then we'll start with those. So, yeah, keep the questions coming. They will be answered starting from episode 89 to now. I'm going to start collecting the best questions, and so will Eric. So, thanks, guys. And remember, go Rams!